Monopsony, minimum wage, take one.
Hey everybody, we're back. We're doing factor market, we're doing monopsony, we're doing minimum wage. You see one of these tables, some of you guys are like, oh boy, I'm skipping that video, it's got that table again. But I'm telling you, if you can understand this table, that is awesome because it really is an important table and it gives you the depth of understanding. If we don't do this, we don't get the depth of understanding, we're being mechanics, we're just drawing line and memorizing things. We want to understand this stuff, okay? That's our important goal. We want to understand this stuff. Okay, and if you're on this video, awesome, because you are deep into economics, into microeconomics right now. Here's what we're doing. We got a monopsony. They've got market power in the labor market, okay? So that's what I'm focusing on. For factor markets, my default factor of production I always go to is labor. That's what I teach from. Of course, there's other ones, but we're focused on labor right now. But everything we do here works for capital and other stuff too. Yeah, with a little bit of a caveat. I mean, I've never seen a minimum, capital payment or something like that. But anyhow, minimum wage for labor. Labor's our factor of production. We've got our table up here. I've got this stuff kind of filled in already for us, okay, except for this final column. So, what we need to always remember is the combination of the wage and the quantity supplied gives us the supply of labor. So these two columns right there are all about giving you the supply curve. It's really the schedule, right? It's the supply schedule for labor, okay? We're thinking about the labor supply. So at a wage of $4, nobody's going to work for us. So the total cost is zero. The marginal factor cost, not even relevant because we're not doing an additional one. We're starting at zero. It's only going to, the marginal factor cost only makes sense once you get to one, when you go from 0 to 1, when you can get an additional, right? So at a wage of $5, guess what? We can get somebody to work for us, okay? So we get one person to work for us, or we get one labor hour, however you want to think about it. We're just staying conceptual. Total cost $5. What's the marginal factor cost? The marginal factor cost, we went from 0 to 5, so the additional cost was $5. And what we notice right here is that a quantity of 1, we've got 5 there and 5 there, and let me connect these two guys right here. Quantity supplied and marginal factor cost. So the marginal factor cost curve and the supply curve start off at the same place, okay? We've got no minimum wage, no wage discrimination. This stuff that I'm doing is just kind of a review. We've already seen it in other videos. That's why I'm talking so fast, okay? So wage of 6, we get 2 people to work for us. 6 times 2 is 12. What's the that's the total cost. What's the marginal factor cost? We're going from 5 to 12, so the additional cost was $7. We put $7 right there. What's the important thing that we see right here? We see that the marginal factor cost curve at a quantity of 2 is not going to be the supply curve anymore. In fact, the marginal factor cost curve is going to be a little bit above the supply curve, okay, at a quantity of 2, okay? Not an output, okay, a quantity, okay, labor hours. Now, next one. Raise the wage to $7. We can get 3 people to work for us, or 3 hours, however you want to say it. 7 times 3, 21. 12 to 21. 21 is the total cost. 12 to 21, that's going to be our marginal, right? That difference right there, that $9 is our marginal factor cost. Once again, at a Q of 3, you see the MFC is above the supply curve. We've got it. That's what we've done already in other videos. Just wanted to review that. I want you to see for no minimum wage, no wage discrimination, what it kind of looks like. But then we decide to do something. We decide to put in a minimum wage, okay? A wage that has to be paid. You have to at least pay this minimum wage. And we're going to say it's $7, okay? So $7, we can't pay lower than $7. So if I'm going to go ahead and fill in the top part. It's really easy, right? So once again, still Q of 0. Not looking at the wage of 4, just Q of 0. Well, if we got 0 people hired, total cost again 0. Marginal factor cost not even applicable. That's why I was going to skip that. But here we go. All right. We want to hire one person. We want to hire one person. Sure, it'd be great to be able to pay them $5. I'm doing this from the business perspective, not the laborer's perspective. Okay, it's theory of the firm. It's all about the firm's perspective. I know the laborer's not happy about that. But we can't pay him $5. We have to pay him $7. That's the minimum wage, right? So we got to pay him $7. So I'm going to put $7 right there. So what was the marginal factor cost? Okay, we went from 0 to 7. The marginal factor cost is 7. Right off the bat, you'd be going, so the marginal factor cost is the minimum wage. Awesome. If you did that, you are there. You are getting where we want you to be. All right, we want to hire 2 people. Well, what do we have to pay? We got to pay both of them $7. So $7 times 2, total cost $14. What's the marginal factor cost? 7 again. That's right, marginal factor cost is the minimum wage. Here we go. We want to hire a third person. Well, here it's when the minimum wage starts to become not binding, right? We would have paid them, we'd had to pay this much anyhow, but still, we got to pay $7. 7 times 3, 21. What was the marginal factor cost? 14 to 21, it was 7, okay? Notice the marginal factor cost is now different than when we had no minimum wage and no wage discrimination. By the way, no wage discrimination means the business can't discriminate on what they pay each person. They got to pay everybody the same amount, okay? That's what no wage discrimination. We pretty much always assume that, okay? I've never seen any, problems about perfect wage discrimination. We could do it, and hopefully maybe you could kind of do it based on what you've learned so far, but no wage discrimination is the default and pretty much always the default. All right, so minimum wage. Now here's the thing. We want to hire a fourth person. So what would we have to pay? We'd have to pay $8. Can we pay $8? Heck yes, a minimum wage just says you can't pay below something, okay? You can definitely pay above the minimum wage. So we're gonna have to pay $8 to get 4 people. So what am I gonna put right here? I'm gonna put 32. And then all of a sudden we get this big jump, 21 to 32, the marginal factor cost, that additional cost for hiring that next person from going 3 to 4 is how much? It's 11. And take a look at that. We're back on the old marginal factor cost curve. We're back on the old marginal factor cost curve. All right, want to hire that 5th person, we're going to have to pay $9. And we can, because now the minimum wage is no longer binding. And we're going to put that $45 in right there. $32 to $45 gets us to $13. We still see we're still on the MFC. Just to finish off, we want to hire one more person or one more hour. We're going to have to pay $10 now. 10 times 6 is $60. 45 to 60 is 15. Yup, we're on that old marginal factor cost curve. We weren't on the old marginal factor cost curve until we got to the place where the minimum wage was no longer binding. All right. That's the table. That's what I want you to spend time on. That's what I want you to get to know. That's what I want you to understand. You understand that? Awesome. You understand marginalism. You understand so much, okay? And you're not just going to be a mechanic. You're not somebody just trying to memorize things, okay? Your knowledge is going to be robust, okay? But now let's go to the graph, okay? So we're going to graph thing out. We've got a monopsony, okay? This is all kind of a little bit confusing, but hopefully we get this, all right? We've got a supply of labor curve. No big deal. Now I'm going to draw in the MFC with no minimum wage, no wage discrimination. Here it comes, the MFC. We've seen that before, okay? MFC, twice the slope, okay? That's what it would look like with no minimum wage, no wage discrimination. And I'm going to put in a marginal revenue product curve, okay? Marginal revenue product curve. Marginal revenue product of labor, which is our demand for labor. The business's demand for labor is based on the revenue those laborers can bring in, okay? That should hopefully make sense. That's that concept of derived demand. But then government says, Actually, before I even go to government, let's put the quantity, how much we're gonna hire, just graphically, and let's put the wage on here. Okay, so really quickly, I go to MFC, MRP, okay, it's always good to do that, right? So the MFC, MRP, that tells us how much we're gonna hire. That's the quantity where we profit maximize, okay? And what's going to be the wage? Well, the wage is going to be based on the supply curve. We're going to pay the lowest wage we possibly can. Theory of the firm. We're the business. We're not the laborers. We're doing it from the firm's perspective. That's why we call it theory of the firm. So we're going to pay the lowest wage that we possibly can based on the supply curve. Grab that guy, put that wage right there. Now, there we go. Government comes in, puts in a minimum wage. They say, no, you can't pay that wage. You have to pay at least something else, okay? And they can put this thing anywhere they want to. For me, my default, if I'm just gonna put one in, I'm gonna say they're gonna do it right where those two curves right there intersect, okay? So we're gonna do, kind of blocking you a little bit there, wage, minimum. That's gonna be our minimum wage. So what does that mean? Well, when you establish a minimum wage, your MFC becomes that minimum wage as long as it's binding, okay? So we're gonna follow that minimum wage all the way to the supply curve, all the way to the supply of labor curve. That is now our MFC, okay? That's our marginal factor cost. Up until this point, to hire one more worker, we're going to have to pay, our cost is going to be the minimum wage, okay? That's why it's constant. Everybody we hire, up until this point, we're going to have to pay the minimum wage, okay? So the MFC, you can see that is constant. Now, what's going to happen once we get to the supply curve? If we want to hire one more person, well, we're going to have to pay a higher wage, and who do we have to pay a higher wage for? Everybody, right? Everybody, no wage discrimination. So what does that mean? We're going to pop over here to the old MFC line. Okay, not loving that blue one, so I'm going to grab another blue one. Make sure you can see it. So we're going to jump over here to that old MFC line. So MFC, MFC, MFC. The blue is the new MFC curve once we establish the minimum wage. So what does this mean? How many people are we going to hire? Are we going to hire more or less? Now, if you've done a minimum wage problem in your past, in a product market, let me say this again. If you've done a minimum wage problem in your past, you probably assumed perfect competition in that labor market. And when you established the minimum wage, you probably saw that we're going to hire less people. We're going to end up letting people go. And that is true if the labor market is perfectly competitive. But if a firm has a monopsony, has that market power, okay, in this particular situation, look what's going to happen. Something very interesting is going to happen. The business is actually going to hire more. I know that's crazy. They're going to hire more. Now, I want to jump back for a second to a monopoly. Remember when we did the price ceiling problem for monopoly? Now, normally, what do price ceilings do? They get businesses to produce less. But a price ceiling with a monopoly can actually get businesses to produce more, at least in theory. Understanding the theory is what we're all about right now, okay? So that can get that counterintuitive result. Same thing here, okay? Same thing here. Minimum wage, perfect competition, absolutely. We're going to hire less people. We're going to let people go for perfect competition. But if a firm has market power, is a monopsony, here it goes. We're going to see we're actually going to hire more. How many were we hiring? Right up to there. How many are we going to hire now? MFC, MRP, okay? MFC, MRP. You're going to hire people as long as your MRP is above your MFC. You're going to keep hiring. Hire, stop hiring. Q profit max. Crazy, but that's the result. You got a firm with market power. You got a firm that's a monopsony. You put in a minimum wage. There is a chance. There's a chance. It's not actually, it depends on where that minimum wage is, but there is a chance that you're actually going to hire more people, and that's the result based on where I put the minimum wage in this particular problem. Whew, that might be worth watching again. But if you got everything, if you understand this graph, if you understand that, you are there. So maybe it's worth watching again. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.